One of the big things was my son, Dean. When he had first grade, it was the first week, he had a stroke, went to the hospital, fell into a coma, needed 3 different brain surgeries, almost didn't make it. And during that time, I had to keep working, of course, keep money flowing for the family so that he didn't get out of the hospital and end up living on the streets. I would go out, I would teach, I'd do my job for the day, and I'd come back home, and often I'd log on to Facebook, just try to keep my mind occupied. And the ads that popped up, family life insurance, family health insurance, a funerary plots. It was an AI delivering them, and that's a huge part of the BuyMort AI. It has total situational unawareness in terms of humanity.
This is the Crit RPG Podcast, your one-stop shop for everything lit RPG, progression fantasy, and Royal Road. All right. Hi, and welcome everyone to the Crit RPG Podcast, the only podcast where we talk to people who have made a career out of writing. With me today is Damien Hanson, an author in the far-off lands of Korea. Well, far off from me. I don't know where you're listening from. Hi, Damien. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Nice.
Out here, we call this place the land of the morning calm, if that's easier to say.
The land of the morning calm. That sounds... Yeah, I need some of that. That sounds good. Yeah. Please, yes. Please.
Gentle morning.
I just wake up with a tinnitus. And I'm like, okay. Cool. So for those of you who don't know you, you write, among many others, a series called BuyMort. Can you talk to us a little more about what's the series about and how did it come to be?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I brought some notes just to make sure that I don't mess things up. But well, we'll start off with the premise of BuyMort. BuyMort is the shopocalypse. And that, if that sounds bizarre, it absolutely is. It's quite the concept. It all started out with pop-up advertising. The whole concept of it came out as pop-up advertising made, let's say, prescient, also godlike even. It takes over the world, so it's obviously rather powerful, right? I mean, more than the world, it takes over the multiverse. So that's
okay.
That's the series concept. And one of the funny things about this is that when I say pop-up advertising, immediately everyone can envision how annoying it is. But it's more than just spam emails and pop-ups. Well, what really got this series going is topicality. The inability of the AI that we have now on the internet to understand the voice of the matter at hand. It just throws stuff at you and tries to push it into you. We have a word here, jidida, which in Korean means stab. The advertising is just stabbing into you, right? Yeah.
Oh, no.
So, I mean, just hawking a product is fine. We've had town criers for forever. But imagine having your computer, the way your computer works, with an image constantly flickering and popping up and trying to sell you something, usually based on your life, which it somehow knows. And, right? Imagine that being installed in your head.
No. I mean, that's called ADHD.
Yeah, that's ADHD, right? I mean, BuyMort installs itself into the head of any sapient creature. And not only that, it also has express shipping via various portals. So you get the advertisement, you decide you want to buy it, and a portal opens up, a pod zips it over to you, and it gives you what you want in exchange for their currency, which is a market currency based on the old labor camps when they used to do the in-company currencies. Yep, they have their own currency called Morties. Yeah,
it makes it sound very very nice and fluffy.
Yeah, kind of, but it's all like the whole concept. Some people thought it came from Rick and Morty, but no, the Mortys come from the name, of course, BuyMort, which is BuyMort, change to BuyMort. But then the mort itself comes from death, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, mortality, mort. So you got all those themes going on just in case it becomes a classic in 20 years and English teachers need to test their students on that stuff.
Of course, which will happen. I mean, I know at least one teacher who will do it, but the guest I had on at this point, it will be last week. He was a mortgage underwriter, and I always found it very, very weird to use, like, here's a house, you own a house now, and the money that you pay this house with, we call a mortgage, which has the word
mort.
Death in it.
Yeah, death gauge.
Why?
Well, it measures how long till you're dead. Mortgage. Mortgage.
Fuck. And no, but there's a U missing for that. There's a U missing for that. The gauge is just a measurement then, right?
Yeah.
No, wait.
Yeah, it'd be mortgage. Yeah, gauge of death. Like the closer you are to finishing paying off your home, the closer you are to dying. Because that's the way it usually works, right? Yeah.
You're making this up.
I am, yes.
You're making this up.
Totally making this up.
Oh, man.
But it
yeah,
seems like it fits, right?
You're morting me here.
Yeah.
You're morting me. No, but okay, so how did that come into your brain? Did you just like look at pop-up ads and were like, what if those ruled the world, or what was going on?
Well, it all started, honestly, like the whole series started with a picture. There's my co-author Joseph Phelps. He has a GTA series, wonderful books. It's really how we met. Like I was reading his book and he was reading mine, and we started talking together. It's GTA themed, and he was talking about maybe doing a different cover for it. And then another author that we know, who's also an illustrator, he decided to try to work with that and just see what would come up. And it wasn't a cover, like the cover he came up with was just kind of funny looking. It definitely wasn't going to work at all. But it had a guy that seemed to be like randomly punching out car windows. So we're just like, we laughed about it a little bit. Like, I wonder what kind of book this would actually be a cover for, right? That sort of thing.
Cool.
And then I took it, I made a meme about it to try to help Joseph move some books. I had just the meme was it had the cover, and the blurb was Joseph Phelps hates car windows, and he breaks them every time we see them, like that sort of thing, right? So it did that, and it had some success. And then he was laughing about that, and he was like, "Hey, you know what? We should sit down and actually think about a real story, a real lit RPG story, where a character." Is literally like punching out windows. Like, why is he doing this?
Nice.
What is the purpose? What is the reason, right? But as we got into it, it started out kind of comedical, but then we started getting into also the reality of it, which is why it went from a comedy to a satire, and sometimes pretty dark too, because it gets into it gets into both of our history. We both have things that happen in our lives that that the market really didn't help with. I'm bringing my notes here. Okay. So for me, one of the big things was my son Dean. So when he had first grade, he had a stroke. It was the first week he had a stroke, went to the hospital, fell into a coma, almost didn't make it, was in the hospital for a long time, needed 3 different brain surgeries in order to get repaired and back on his feet. And during that time, my wife and my mom-in-law, they were staying there at the hospital because I had to keep working, of course, keep money flowing for the family so that he didn't get out of the hospital and end up, all of us living on the streets. But when that was going on, I would go out, I would teach, I'd do my job for the day, and I'd come back home, and often I'd log on to Facebook or go onto Google, just try to keep my mind occupied. And the ads that popped up they were horrific. I mean, family life insurance, family health insurance, a funerary plot, funeral homes just sending me messages. And as you can imagine, it was a really rough time. They were, it was an AI delivering them, and that's a huge part of the BuyMort AI. Is it has total situational unawareness in terms of humanity. It ignores humanity in order to deliver a product, and that's what was happening in my life. Like I said, I made notes because I want to make sure I had everything. It's 5 years past.
It's fine. Like, we're just talking.
Yeah. There was also foreign hospitals. A number of foreign hospitals that were specialized in moya, which is what he had, that caused the coma, or that caused the stroke and the coma, like sending that stuff. And none of that, it's not the right time. I think that's the biggest thing. It's not the right time for that. So it took up root inside of me, and it stayed there. I somewhat have I guess maybe it is PTSD from the moment, because it still crops up here and there. Like anytime anything happens with them, I'm just, and it just pops up.
Like PTSD isn't just for war zones, right?
Yeah.
You can have many different reactions to traumatic stress or to trauma, and maybe it is. I would certainly call it PTSD if it is a trauma and then had stress and then something changed in you. So
and absolutely. And so that all came up, and it was one of those things that it actually gave me a chance to work through and observe it, and even report on what was wrong with the system. Like, you know what I mean? And so BuyMort, it's a satire of the system we live in. And it's ironic because there are people who got angry about it on Royal Road when it was up there, who said it was anti-capitalism, communism, maybe even, right? And no, it's not that at all.
You hit the Royal Road checklist there. Like, the only thing you needed to do to have even less followers is do a female MC.
So it's rather weird because it's definitely not against the market system or any of that, because the market system is what saved my son as well. I mean, he had the stroke destroyed something like 25% of his brain. And of course, being so young, he was able to come back with a lot of that. But the biggest problem was they had to relay a lot of arteries, take it out of his leg and lay it across his brain and through different aspects.
Which is crazy.
Yes.
Okay.
And the technology to do that came from the system that we had. So, like the people who were responding in that way didn't understand the message at all. It's not about the products. Because in the book itself, in the BuyMort series, there are a wonderful array of amazing products that are used throughout the book. A lot of the progression is loot-based. Whether it's cluster colonies of nanites that are used to bolster your strength and endurance, whether it's a starfish implant that allows you to regenerate your body based on kinetic energy that you've stored in the battery, kinetic energy that you get from breaking stuff, by the way.
There we go. Yeah. I think I might have done you dirty on the translation then, because I didn't know how important the window smashing was. No. So I changed that.
It's all right. It's funny to read anyways. They'll be surprised then.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, Damien and I, we got to talking because he posted his I should say AI translated blurb for the German translation of BuyMort, and I just said, let me just try to get my best Brian Norton impression. Oh no. Oh no. And actually, it was pretty good. Wow. And I looked at it and I was like, give me that. I can fix that. And then I looked at the book and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And I've seen it mentioned on Facebook a few times, and that's how we got to talking. And that's the end of that prelude. So I've done it dirty. I changed it into, leftist revolutionary slogan, which also kind of works, I guess. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm gonna get denounced as a communist. It happens.
No. Well, actually, you might. You really might. I'm so sorry. I'm not taking any political sides on this podcast, but in the blurb, I just work with what I had. So
I better run this thing through a translator. It's all like "Hail Stalin," like.
No.
No, it sounded like it's pretty funny. So it's all good.
Yeah, it is. Like leftists are hilarious at times, but also scary at other points. So okay,
also,
end of the excursion. End of the excursion. Okay, so cool. So besides me doing you dirty on the translation, I think I mean, it's out in German now. Do you have any other languages that are coming out?
Yeah, actually, language-wise, I am working with somebody in Japan right now who's going to be translating into Japanese. Because he looked at it and he said, this is something Japanese people, he thinks, will go wild for. And he's been living there for a long time, fluent in the language. Doesn't teach there, which is always a good sign that someone is staying there forever. You know? So
the jet program. Okay, sorry.
I mean, apparently in Japan, like they really like very unique takes on things, which I guess I shouldn't have used a parent with that, because anyone who watches Netflix anime knows how very creative the country is. So he thinks it falls into that vein. He's pretty sure that a lot of Japanese people are really going to enjoy how different it is. And I hope that's right. And
give me the context of this person. I need to understand the book. Yeah. But yeah, go ahead.
And then in Korea here, I was working on a translation myself. And then I showed it to my wife. She's a Korean woman. And she said, I got all the translation right with none of the nuance correct. So we'll see how that goes.
Much like your AI.
Yeah, much like the AI, right? So I'm not sure about that one, but we'll see in the future. I mean, she was like, it comes across, anybody reading this will understand it, but it just sounds weird. Yeah, the big thing, going back to the ads, like I never clicked on any of those ads, obviously, right? They have their emotional impact.
Yeah.
And when I think back about it, some of them probably were helpful. I can see why they were there. But I'm also reminded of the movie I, Robot with Will Smith, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because I know I have to mention the movie because the book's quite different. But one thing he says in the movie is like there's a scene, he's recounting how he had an accident and with another car, I believe it was, and they had both fallen into the deep water. And they were all sinking. They're all going to drown. And a robot jumped in and had a choice between saving him and a young child. And the robot did the calculation. And it's like, okay, he's an adult male. He's going to survive or have a better chance of surviving than the child. I'm going to get the adult male. And for him, it caused this PTSD scene and made him hate robots because he said a human would have known better. A human would have gone for the child. And that's really what that whole ad thing was like. I mean, it was like, maybe it was useful. Maybe it was helpful. I mean, we have good medical care here in Korea, but if I'd been living in the US, certainly those Moya Moya hospital ads, probably, they very much could have helped me out because instead of costing, I had looked it up. I looked it up later after everything was done. In the US, it would have cost me $360,000 to take care of my son. Those hospitals were offering the same treatment for $20,000 per, so it would have been like $60,000. And then in Korea, they ended up doing it. They paid for 90% of it. So like I could see where their usefulness is, but they would have known somehow. They would have known how to time it, I guess, better. So that's the system there. But Phelps had his own problems. Now, I mentioned this before. Like he doesn't want to show his face anywhere, but he is real. He's that like
sure, Damien.
No, he's real. But he had his own problems with the system as well. Things that have really affected him greatly, and so he poured his own thing into that as well. And it's rather interesting because since I know him, like he doesn't know a lot of people. He's not a very social person. He doesn't put himself out a lot. But I'm rather close to him. I'm one of the few people I think who, is in that position. And when you know him, you can recognize him in the main character. Like we put a lot of his history into where his history, his feelings, his personality into the main character of the series. So it's a mixture of my experiences with the system and his experiences as well. And it all comes into this thing here. And it sounds like quite the downer, right? But we wanted it to have we wanted to I don't know how to explain it, I guess. Like we wanted it to have a happy ending. We didn't want this whole thing to just be, oh yeah, he gets screwed over again and again and again.
Again. Yeah. As we can foresee in Dungeon Crawler Carl, Dinneman.
Yes.
Because
I am
yeah.
looking forward to seeing him get the
I'm still hoping I can get him on the show just to yell at him. Yeah, because I think it was Carolex who met him and talked to him and was like, "But the series is gonna end well, right?" And he just goes,
well, I don't know how many people know this, but before DCC, he was known for kind of dark writing.
Kaiju.
Yeah, Kaiju.
Kind of dark, yeah. I mean, I know Spanish. I know Spanish. Like I knew this book was dark by the first 4 or 5 chapters. So yeah.
Oh yeah, the garbage lady, the hoarder.
Oh
I
God,
know that is a rough one.
This traumatized me. But you were like, we're talking about this, I think, because many people do actually compare BuyMort and Dungeon Crawler Carl, which works both ways, right? So people who enjoy Dungeon Crawler Carl might also enjoy your story.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It comes up so much. And there are people who throw back against it, like, no, it isn't. And other people like, yes, it is. So it's enough of a thing that they're very similar. I think my favorite, actually, my favorite comment in regard to that was a thread on Reddit, and I don't remember how long ago it was, but there was a thread where people were talking about how maybe there needs to be a new subgenre in lit RPG game lit, and in that subgenre there would be 2 books. One would be Dungeon Crawler Carl, and one would be BuyMort.
So it's like dark, like really, really, really pitch dark, but funny. So you were talking about Phelps, how he kind of like fits in there.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like once you get to know the main character Tyson Dawes, you get a pretty good insight into actually who Phelps is. So maybe he doesn't have to show up on these shows. I mean, he doesn't want to show up anywhere. You know what I mean? And so maybe he doesn't have to. You could just buy the book and meet him that way.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
How did
I was just saying? Yeah, we made him to the hero, and he's in a strange situation at the start of everything because we also brought in one of his former bosses from his real life, but changed the name, and that's his boss at the start of this apocalypse. And it's interesting their dynamics because we decided that we wanted him to be an unlikable character, the boss, but also we wanted him to have all of these good qualities. And so there was a very big conflict, and people were supposed to both hate him and like him. And I think that one worked well. And no spoilers, but a lot of people say that the end of the second book is extremely powerful. And it wouldn't be at all if it wasn't for that dynamic. Like that was such a wonderful interwoven character. And I miss him. I'll say that too.
The boss, yeah. How did you co-write this, by the way? Because I don't know that many people who co-write.
Oh, well, the co-writing is I would say it's more fun than writing by yourself, in my opinion. The way that we did it, like before we even wrote a single word, we spent 3 months working together on world building. We spent all that time every day. I would say every morning here, so probably every night there. 3 or 4 hours on Messenger, just talking it out, just and building up a document and getting all these ideas put together, like what this is going to be. I mean, we started with, of course, guy who goes around punching windows. Why is he doing that? And then after we started getting serious with it, we started developing the kind of world that this would be, and came up with the multiversal concept, where this Amazon type organization isn't just dominant in one planet, but it's dominant in multiple universes, and it just keeps going. Came up with the concept of Van Neumann probes being the things that are spreading it. They're just tearing through and ripping apart various rocks and making more of themselves and spreading around. And every time they find somebody that has a brain that's capable of using the app, it gets installed. Boom. And ultimately, because of all of this awesome loot that is available in the marketplace, from all of the various multiverses, it takes over. The systems that exist collapse rather quickly. And there are services within BuyMort itself that make that happen too. And we had so much fun talking about that, because we everything in the system has a real life counterpart to it.
Oh no. Oh yeah. But oh no.
And we dipped back into history for some of it, as far back as I would say, like, I think the oldest concept that we brought back was probably from medieval Europe, I guess I would say. Where it was the exact part was, it was one of the concepts I brought in for book one, where a historian noted that when a soldier died in combat, it was just regular, like it was nothing. It was just, this is regular life. But when a noble died in combat, it was a tragedy.
Yeah, it was. You know why that was?
Maybe. Kind of what?
Life back then was way more transient.
Yeah.
Right. So they all just thought that life was just a step. Right. Yeah. Cool. Like you got to earn your credits to get into heaven, and that's where life starts. Because people died so often that thinking about this is the only life that you had was like, no. Right. But when a noble died, something divine died, especially when the king died, right? Because he was literally like anointed by God, and so his divine spirit died. I'm not sure if many people like walked around and talked about it like this, but I think it always plays a part subconsciously. And nobles, well, if a noble dies, you don't know if the next noble is going to be an even bigger asshole. So,
well, the way it translated in this one was people with immense wealth are able to purchase damage insurance. And when you harm one of the BuyMort nobles, one of these very rich plutocrats, I guess you could say, and they have this sort of insurance, you actually get fined by the company, and you have to pay damages, usually a multiplier of the medical costs incurred. So if you punch one of these guys and it's going to cost them, $1,000 in the hospital to recover, it's going to cost you $1 million. Well, I said bucks, but Morty's, that sort of thing. So that's how that came in. But so we kept working through all this stuff, and we even did research on it. Like we went into real estate research, and we're like, okay, how are we going to take the real estate market and put it into the BuyMort system? And I think by the time we were done with this, 3 months of that, we knew each other so well that we were able to finish each other's sentences, and that helped a lot.
That's cool.
So when it actually came down to the writing, we started writing together, and we did it all in Google Docs because it's so easy to share. And we just did it at different times, and we would go over each other's work. I'd write stuff and he'd go over my stuff, and he'd write stuff and I'd go over his stuff, and we unified it together. And we also found that we had different specialties. Usually the action scenes are mostly his. Like if people are, especially if it's a very long action scene, because he loves long action scenes. So yeah, he's very good at that. I mean, I'm pretty good at action, but he's very good at it, right? And if you're looking at like the comedy satire, especially the ad crunch and the loot, that's my specialty. I'm very much like pretty early on, he was like, "You've got this." And a lot of that is because I kept on doing the research too. Every time we came up with something and we're like, okay, we're going to have this sort of loot here that has this sort of function, this sort of power to it. I would try to find a real world equivalent, see who they were advertising it to, how they advertised it, and then I would crunchify it. I would lots of fun. It takes a lot of time to do, but it's a lot of fun. Yeah. And
yeah. I mean, that's what counts, right? Because as the book gets stale, then you're no longer find fun writing it. And
yeah. Absolutely.
Cool. Dope. Well, it's a new ad. If you're interested in having your story shouted out on this podcast, please reach out to me under critrpg.podcast@gmail.com. For now, I just finished the first book in my own series, Torchbearer. If you like a slow burn story about weak to OP main characters, mixing magic and technology, and numbers going up, you might also enjoy this one. You can find the link to my link tree down below. And that's all for now. Thank you very much for listening and or watching, and let's get on with the show. That actually brings me to the next question. I mean, we are probably about 40 minutes into the main podcast at this point, and we haven't even started with the second question yet, which is, what's the best advice you've ever gotten as a writer?
All right, I have notes on this.
Yeah, because unlike many of the other authors, which are perfectly fine, by the way, you have come prepared, which has caught me very unprepared. So you're good.
Buddy. Well, I have to always be careful about my eyes, though, because they're going to be darting back and forth, and it's going to look crazy.
It's okay. I think many people, I think only like 50% of the people watch it on YouTube. They all just put it on, then have it around.
Oh, and then just listen to it. Okay.
I don't know.
Well,
yeah. I mean, like, maybe they can let me know in the comments.
Nice.
I'm very bad at this whole like YouTube chilling out, but this is like a question I would actually love to know. Like, do you listen to this, or do you just do you actually watch my face? Because I can't imagine someone doing that.
I feel
bad to themselves.
I feel bad for the ones who are watching this. I mean, look at this face. The best advice I ever got as a writer is take criticism as it is meant. Listen to people when they criticize you, and you know, see how much merit there is to it. Also, I guess one of the greatest things actually is don't just write for yourself, write for the audience as well. That was my mistake earlier, for sure. No, and you know,
I hate that. I resent that statement.
Every writer hates that too, to a certain extent. But what you kind of realize after you write enough novels that don't catch the public eye is that it's kind of, you need them. You need to partner up with your audience. They have a say in it too. They have a big say in it, actually. I shouldn't say like, oh yeah, they also have a say. No, they have a huge say in it. And so you need to listen to them and you need to write to them and make the stories they want to read. There are, in the writing community, I've run into a lot of great authors. There are a lot of them out there. And a number of them don't ever succeed because they don't follow that last bit. They want to write the story they want to write. And it's unfortunate.
Which I always have to say at this point is fine if you're not doing it as a main job.
Yes.
If you just want to write for fun, fucking write
Absolutely.
for fun. Right?
Yep.
So
no, I totally agree with that. If you're just writing for yourself, yeah, just do that. Or writing for fun, just do that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're writing to get read, I guess that's when the partnership comes in. That's when you definitely need to have a consensus. And Royal Road really helped with that, because there were issues that popped up that a lot of people didn't like. And it was like, okay, we got to listen to you. We're going to rewrite this, and we're going to see if you are okay with this rewrite. Fingers crossed, because if you're not, that's going to be a lot of wasted time. But in general, it works.
It's iteration. Yeah, I mean, totally. Like, and after a while, you also you come to see and agree with criticism, right?
Yep.
Because I loved writing Torchbearer, just pantsing it and being like, oh, well, Sam's angry again now. But then after reading the comments and then reading the feedback and then going over it again, I was like, okay, yeah, maybe it's a bit much on the emotional
you
ping-pong.
get to see it from different perspectives, and they give you you different angles, and you're able to actually jump into that angle and look at it from there. And absolutely, you can see like, oh God, yeah, they're right. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to admit it, but they're right.
If you put it like that, I can see where you're coming from. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's your advice. You literally take criticism the right way. And that's easier said than done. You know this. I know this. Everyone knows this. One thing that always helped me, I think Seth Ring actually told me this one. He does writing sprints, by the way, which you should check out in his YouTube channel. Every day, I think, at 9 or 10 Eastern Standard Time. You can check it out. Anyway, so he mentioned that it's very good if you see criticism that you don't get, or maybe the guy is angry or writes something really rude, or you read it as rude or whatever. It's always good to kind of ask, like, hey, what's one thing that I could do to improve this then for you? What would make this more palatable to you? And then you can see whether you agree with that, right? If they're like, well, you could make the MC male, I'm like, yeah, I could, but I don't. So thank you and goodbye. But if they're saying like, well, I just don't know, like all this anger gets a bit much after a while and it's kind of confusing. I'm like, oh, okay, I need to make it more realistic and I need to make sure that people actually understand why this is going on, right? So yeah. Good.
Yeah, and I guess I'll add something on that too, because I did do that before as well. I did talk to not many times, because I was good given the advice like just don't. A lot of times just don't, right? But there were a couple times that I did.
Don't respond.
There are a couple times I did, and I think the reason they say don't is because a lot of writers respond emotionally, and that's what they're trying to avoid. And then the times I did, it was just questions like that, and I did get good feedback from that. But one thing I want to add to all of that is my own bit of advice, I guess, that I was never told, but I'm going to say now for everybody who's listening. If people are responding angrily, it means they cared. And that's very good.
Yes, that's a good point.
That means you had them. Maybe you lost them now, but you had them, and you're doing right. At least some of them are right, you know?
I had a cliffhanger. I mean, I end every single scene on a cliffhanger because this is how I write. I cliffhang myself so that I want to go back and continue writing.
It does make sense, I think.
It's easy. It's fun. It's also a Hemingway trick, I think. But a particularly hard cliff. And everyone was like, no, this cliffhanger, no. And I just responded with the kana emoji where it's like, because that's exactly what I want, right? I want people to feel emotions. If everyone feels meh about my book, it's not a good book.
Yeah, I mean, you see a Royal Road. I want to say the vast majority of stories up there, they don't have comments. And that's a bad sign. If you have angry comments, that's a good sign. Like, people don't think about it that way in the moment, especially, but it is a good sign.
And you know what's the best sign? If you go on Reddit and someone writes a like this long this long paragraph of like, I hate he who fights monsters. It's the most terrible thing. And like, I'm not singling out any single one person here. I'm very sorry. I'm being facetious here. But there are so many threads about I hate Who Fights with Monsters or I hate Dungeon Crawl Call. Like some of them are actually there. There's none that say I hate Cradle because you get banned for that, I think. So all hail to Lord and Savior Will, right?
No, that's fine. Yeah,
I really do. Please don't cancel me. Right, it just means like, what's Shortland going to do? Like read your comment and then cry in a gigantic pile of money? Like what's he going to do?
Take down the book and rewrite it properly.
I mean, yeah, and like some of these people actually like. I read one where it was like very, very in-depth criticism about like, this is bad, that is bad, this isn't good, and stop reading here, and you should stop reading here too. And what this guy meant was, I didn't enjoy it past this point, and if you enjoyed these certain parts of it, just be aware that in the next few books, these parts aren't going to be there for a while. So I stopped, and if you want to stop, you can also stop too. But the way he wrote it, it sounded very, very hurt, very aggressive. And it ended on, and that being said, I wish Shortland all the best and just keep on writing, you're doing great. I'm like, what? I got whiplash so hard. But yeah, it was not a terrible sentiment, but I think maybe it didn't quite hit the way he wanted it to hit. And that's going back to the criticism. Most of the time, remember, Royal Road is not age restricted. Many people who comment on your stuff are 12, 13, 14, 16-year-olds, and they just write whatever comes to their mind.
Well, and I think,
right? Or
I think some people also forget about how emotional books can make you. Imagine like you hit a moment. Okay, I guess like a good one here. Game of Thrones. Anyone who's read Game of Thrones book 1, if you spoiler alert, right? If you like the Stark family, you're going to be dropping that book pretty quickly and going to Reddit and writing a very angry thing about it because, especially if you do it right after the moment, because you get so drawn into these worlds. So if you drop the book and your immediate reaction is to go to Royal Road or go to Reddit, whatever you type is going to be pretty emotional. It's going to come out hostile, probably.
Yeah. And one thing that I found very surprising is yes, right? So this is all intentional emotions. And some things elicit emotions in readers that you didn't want. So, or maybe they didn't enjoy. I mean, many of my reviews said like, this is very confusing. And I said, yes, it is, because it's a mystery. It's supposed to be confusing. Right. So still, I looked at it and I was like, is this maybe too confusing? Am I too obstinate with my ideas here because I want to pull people in? So I toned it down a little bit, but still, sometimes a book just isn't for you, and that's okay. So
except my book, it's for everybody.
I don't know who said that exactly, and everyone should read and buy it.
I am surprised I do not have millions of reviews right now, but it's coming.
Yeah. It's an Amazon glitch, probably. So one advice I always give people who want to write critique or who want to criticize something is don't criticize it for what it could have been. Criticize it for what it wanted to be and whether or not it achieved those goals. Yeah. Right? Because I'm not gonna say like look at Iron Man and go like, well, Citizen Kane did it better. Like, no, this is not the same thing. Citizen Kane wasn't meant to be popcorn movies that just made you feel powerful and strong. Same as Lit RPG isn't meant to make you question the multiverse or universe. Sorry, in your case, well, I guess it does. But it's not meant to be this sad and haunting tale of love long lost. You can have that as a part of it.
Yeah, right? I agree. So, like when we were talking earlier, I talked about making that sheet for new authors, right? and you have the 3 genres. And that's what your goal is.
Yeah.
Can you, a lot of stories say they do the 3 genres. And
oh my God, Damien, I'm very sorry. You finished first. I cannot forget this. This is a very cool.
Oh,
cool
I was
idea.
just gonna say, like, just playing on what you said. Has the book achieved the goals of these genres? Has it met the expectations of these readers? If it has, then it did its job. Yeah. Now back to you.
Gamify that. You can gamify it. You know how like 3 genres, and you have like a main genre and like subgenres.
Yep.
Right? You can have that like classes. You can multi-class. You can be a fighter that's also a bit of a rogue.
Oh,
and a
yeah,
mage,
yeah, for sure.
Right? And then like you can gamify it. You can have really cool things, and you fill out a character sheet for your book. It could be really fun, but also maybe a bit complicated. we'll see. It's fun. Cool. All right. You mentioned a few times now that while we were talking, that you kind of went back and changed some stuff. So what's one thing that you learned while writing that you went back and changed, or that you would go back and do differently?
Well, in the BuyMort series, we actually we fed in more of his past history, because people were confused about his reticence towards violence in the beginning, and there was a reason for it, and we had that reason planned out, mapped out. In our first 3 months. I mean, we had everything. We have so much stuff that's not in the book. Like there, I mean, we could make our own game system out of this thing, but but so we had to go back and we had to put that in so that people could realize, like, oh, wait a minute, he has these issues. He has this backstory in play, and that also played with his boss, because we had to make it more apparent who the boss was, because at first everyone just hated. But I told you, like talked about before, how he's supposed to be good and bad. He's supposed to be human, a very arrogant and pampered human, but one that also has very redeeming qualities, and also lead to some very difficult character development with our MC. Maybe, and hopefully I'm explaining that in a way that comes out clear.
You are. I'm just taking notes.
Nice. Yeah. So we had to change those things, and we did have to go back at one point and be like we had an outline that had been prepared for the first book that ended up being the first 3 books because of how long it took to get there. But we did have to go back at 1.2 and just cut a third of that outline and be like, this is changing. We are bending this story from here because of popular opinion. Like we know where people want this to go, and we are in the outline. We're kind of going in the opposite direction of that, and we've gotten to the point where we know that if we follow the original outline on this part here, people are just going to drop it in mass, and then they're going to find out where we live, and fires are going to start. There's going to be an international incident because I'm here in Korea. So, we want to avoid World War III. And
windows are going to get smashed. Yeah, man.
Yeah, windows get smashed. People would have like starfish eggs implanted in their chest. It'd just be madness.
Like, put on their face. Which is, I think, a very, very cool. I mean, have you read what's it called? The starfish, the cruciform.
Yes. Yes. I don't remember offhand the name of it either, but the cruciforms with the priests.
It's the Canterbury Tales in space. What's the name again? It's
Hyperion. Yep. They have the killer monster that still doesn't make quite a lot of sense to me because he's always torturing everybody, but yeah, it's still good. It's a great series.
Yeah, and he's like, without spoiling too much, he's like living time in reverse. It's that guy had dreams and ambitions, but yeah, it's a very interesting book. But my God,
it is long. Very long, but
and confusing
too.
Yeah.
Also the gates. Oh my God, he did so many good things with those gates. But yeah, great.
And then he did. only half explains everything. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, but yeah, they're gonna have starfish, and there's gonna be like World War III in Korea. Please don't.
And
to
so
wrap
yeah,
it
that's
up.
the stuff we did. I mean, we went back and we changed based on opinions, based on greater knowledge of what people wanted and also what they saw. Because you know,
Mhm.
like I said with Tyson, we had to put in some backstory. We already had the
Yeah.
backstory in our head. So I guess we didn't realize it when we're writing out that it came out confusing because we weren't putting that in.
And that's the risk of plotting and world building too much. Like I found that people who world build a lot have two main dangers, and that is over or under explaining. There's a book series that I really like. I'm not going to name it because I don't want to badmouth anyone, but in the middle of it, like in the middle of the second book, this main character talks to someone, and then for the next, I kid you not, 18 paragraphs, they recount in their head a story about how they met someone, and then how that someone in a previous life did something else, and then worked together with someone else, and then so on, so on, so on. And it seemed to have no relevance to the story whatsoever for 18 paragraphs. And then they met this person, and this faction came in, and that faction, of course, built all these things, but they no longer need it because of that stuff. And like, okay. After 80 paragraphs, and it ends on, no, I disagree. We shouldn't do this. Like, just the dialogue continues, and I was like, okay, I think I might read something else now, because over under explaining, and yeah, we're in the same boat. We under explain because like everyone will get this,
Yeah,
and then it don't.
Yeah, Ben. Then that's one of the great things about having the serial site. I think is people point that out to you, and so oh, excuse me. And so yeah, I mean that's what you do. You go back and you fix that once you realize like okay, not enough explanation that needs to get out there. Hey, you know, or the opposite side. If someone if someone says, "Oh my God," like this didn't happen with us, but if someone did come by, it's not just one. Okay, I should back that up. If a dozen people show up in the comments saying this is a problem, you go back and you fix it because it's a problem. That it really is. Yeah.
Yeah. The old workplace rule applies. If there's one asshole in your workplace, they're an asshole. If there's 20 assholes in your workplace, you're the asshole.
Yes, perfect.
Right? So if one person comes in and says, "Oh no, this is weird, I don't like it. Where's all the chicks?" Like whatever. But if there's 20 people coming like, "I think this might benefit from a more female touch," they're like, "Okay, cool. I need a female side character." Right? Like this makes sense. Yeah. Cool. Dope. I mean, I love these short answers, and I'm not going to try and inflate them even more because we are reaching the point where we are pretty much at the end of the main podcast. But next up, I want to ask you, what one book did you love, and why is it awesome?
People are going to be disappointed because they're going to. Hey, I think they're going to want me to say some unknown title, but it's not going to happen because.
I mean, it's supposed to tell the listeners more about you, who you are as a person, right? But also give them recommendations.
Think given what BuyMort is, it shouldn't be a shock that my favorite lit RPG book of all time is Dungeon Crawler Carl.
He who fights with monsters.
I mean,
Dungeon Crawler
it's
Carl.
funny too because I started reading it after we were already working on the BuyMort, so it wasn't inspired, but I can see that like by reading it, some of that feeling did get put into the story after, and definitely not intentionally. I'm just such a big fanboy of the whole thing. Like every time one of those books drops, I'm immediately on it. I just boom, I have it. That's who I am with this. It's
but
DCC. I love how it's like it comes off. It obviously has political undertones, but it doesn't flaunt them. It doesn't say, look, look at my discontent. No, No, I mean, you can read this as any ideology, doesn't matter, because it's a survival story, and it's also it's also the Colosseum. You know,
Yeah.
it's
It's
yep,
fun
it's a
games.
competition. It's a lot of human stories. We run into a lot of backstory, a lot of types of characters, and his vision of how they are surviving in this what is Running Man. There you go. In this Running Man type of situation. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Running Man. Yeah, Stephen King.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And it showcases the marvels of this futuristic technology while somehow also forcing the characters to mostly be medieval monsters. When we get down to it, which is amazing, because he gets to transition them into sci-fi, back into D&D world, back into sci-fi again. I absolutely love it. And even though it's dark and horrifying, it's also funny. It's also touching. It's got everything. I honestly, when I finished the first book, I had a moment of crisis where I was like, I don't know if I should write anymore because he's done it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
honestly, I had so much imposter syndrome. I was just like, oh, all right, Matt Dinneman, he wrote the perfect book. Everything's done. No more authors.
Authors are no longer
they're
needed.
obsolete.
He does an amazing job of mixing the kale in the smoothie.
Yes.
Right? Not just to make the horror go down better, because it is fundamentally an existential horror.
Yep.
It is gruesome, it is tragic, it is traumatic, and it broke my heart at least once per book. At least once per book. Every single book has at least one part where you're like, where there's just anguish, and you know someone's going to die, and there's nothing you can do about it, and the world will not care afterwards.
Yeah, because it's just a TV show. It's Running Man.
Yeah, but also there's funny cats.
Yeah.
Right? And there's Uzi Jesus. I'm like, Matt, what the fuck? Uzi Jesus? Why? I still can't wrap my mind around that one. And I haven't even read Battle and Bride yet. I just saw the cover. I was like, what? How? But he also has this all-encompassing grand critique about the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
Including, if you're looking at Carl as a content creator, as someone who is trapped in that and you can no longer escape. That's a gigantic societal statement right there.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
And you cannot tell me this is not designed to be this way. Like, you can't. This guy is writing 3 stories at once and he's doing it perfectly well, which is why it hits so hard. And I personally think that he is writing the story he wants to tell, but he's just really masterful at making it look like a story that everyone else wants to read. Like, that's skill.
It's very much, yeah.
Period.
Like I said, existential crisis. But you know what got me out of it was I had this idea, this dream that maybe I could do well enough to afford to fly over to a convention that he's going to be at, and then I could set up a table next to him and just bother him the entire time.
And break his car window. There we go. And you're like, Matt, the end of book 5? Yeah. Your car window is gone now.
I won't even talk about books. I'm just going to constantly be like, hey, Matt.
And then he's like, looks at his what? He's like, danger zone. Sorry.
Glorp.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
It's a dream of mine.
Oh.
And then my life will be
complete.
Happen. Yeah, we do. I need to set up a Kickstarter or something.
Yeah, you can add like a Patreon tier for like that runs for like 5,500 euros, or dollars.
I will name it Glorp Glorp, and then Matt Dinneman.
Yeah, and then send me to DragonCon so I can bother Matt Dinneman for 3 days. Oh no!
Yeah, we all have to have dreams, right? Dreams and goals.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Yeah. Maybe you settle for writing more books.
Yeah. I mean, the books are how I get there. So
yeah. I do hope to go to DragonCon at some point, though. This year, I won't make it because my job situation is just not clear enough. I don't know if I will be able to like get vacation because I don't even have my new employer yet. So, and if I don't have money. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's kind of a situation for a lot of people. I think this year it's been a rough time for sure. But hopefully we both can find the dough for the tickets and go.
Yeah.
I'll take the table on his left. You take the table on his right.
And then we can like duo. You go glorp, I go glorp, 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 glorp. like in
It'd be
stereo.
like surround sound. And the greatest thing, it will be a hell that he himself created.
Which is again a very Dungeon Crawler Carl kind of thing, right?
It'll be like he's living in his own story. It'll be wonderful.
It's not harassment, officer. It's performance art.
We're cosplaying.
Yeah, we're cosplaying. We're cosplaying as Matt Dinneman fans. Yep. No, I don't think we should do that. We don't think we should do that. Okay. Shoutouts.
Shoutouts. I wanted to make sure that I hit small-time authors on this one because there are lots of big-time people, and that's they're great. Everyone knows who they are. So the biggest ones I have in mind, Ataris Station.
Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Small guys, yeah. Ataris Station is what's the author's name there? Well, anyways, the name of the book is Ataris Station, and this is one published to Amazon. It is a sci-fi dark horror sci-fi lit RPG. And
staying on brand.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose it is. And when I read it, my immediate thought was Doom. And then System Shock. And then System Shock 2.
Ooh.
Like all of the dark sci-fi RPG, somewhat RPG anyways, games, right? Came to mind, including with the world building, with the audio tapes laying around, with all the transition through the station where you're going into the medical bay, and then there's the engineering. And it's just amazing. And I was lost in it. And it's a bit of a slow start. So I think that's one of the reasons it didn't do so well on there. But if you get through that start, you're blown away. It's so good that I asked him about a second one. He said he's not going to be able to do it because the first one didn't do so well. But I keep asking him because at some point, maybe it'll happen then. You know what I mean? Yeah, you can see just 19 ratings, and it deserves so much more than that. And, a really cool thing about that, too, is my son recently, he said he wanted to go up because he's going to middle school. He said he wants to read a book for adults. And, because he's been reading like YA stuff usually. And he asked me about a lit RPG book. And I asked him, well, you're going to have to be more specific. Like, do you want like fantasy, medieval, like what sort of thing? He said sci-fi. And without even thinking about it, this is the book I blurted out. I said Ataris Station. And then he literally asked me, can I get it signed? Like, can I get the book signed? And so I contacted the author and I asked him about it. I said, how much for an autographed copy? And he said, you know what? I'm just going to autograph a copy and send it to you. Cool. Super nice guy. Cool. Super good book. Super nice guy. I hope that people listening check it out because it is great in every way. Great producer, great story.
Reminds me a bit of Tower of Somnus, as in like sci-fi, cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Have you read that?
I haven't, but
it's also quite fun. Sorry, but you were saying your second one.
Oh, that's older one. But it's one of them that really got me into lit RPG. Like I'd read some before, but this one was the first one that really blew my mind. And it's PrimeVerse, which is Rob Bilal, I think. Yeah, I'd do the search there too.
Oh,
yeah, you found it. Okay.
I found it.
PrimeVerse is amazing. Like it's just, I'm one of those people who I have vivid dreams when I'm writing. I can vividly see what's going on. I like everything's a TV show to me, right, in my brain. But when I'm reading other people's work, it isn't always like that. But with his, it was LCD, clear screen, crystal, whatever words I need to put in there. I saw and felt everything. And I can't even tell you why exactly, but I was entirely immersed. The whole series went very well for me. How many books is that? Is that 3 or 4 in that series? Can you see there?
3 right now.
3. Well, that's where it's going to end then, because I couldn't remember if he said he was going to write 3 or 4. But he actually, this was another thing that impressed me. He said, it doesn't matter how well it does. I wrote out the story and I'm going to write it all to the finish of that story. And that's where I'm going to stop. And so,
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, like he did book 1, 2, 3 exactly on what he had prepared. And I think he was doing pretty well with it, and he could have extended it more if he wanted to, but he was afraid of it going sour. He wanted it to stay good all throughout, and he very much succeeded in doing that.
Yeah, I mean, no one wants to jump the shark.
Yes,
right.
Yeah,
and not everything needs to be Primal Hunter or Survivors of the Fall. Like some books end, and that's okay.
Yeah,
cool.
They can have one more book.
All right. Okay, one more book. Like I'm going to have to like Google all these and like put them all in the comments. So there you go.
Yeah, just the last one. Okay, Orcanomics. Okay.
Oh, I've heard about that.
Yes, that is good.
I've heard about that one.
It's not, I think technically it's not a lit RPG, but it really should be counted as one. Because imagine a D&D world where levels are decided by bureaucracy, not just deeds and experience, but by bureaucracy and filing the proper paperwork. Imagine a world in which adventures are sponsored by companies, but the companies who sponsor them purchase shares in your quest and then get that percentage of stuff back, right?
Okay. I mean, you said small. This guy has 2,858.
Oh, it was small when I read it, ratings. I guess. Because his rating, when I picked up the book, is like 300 something. But that was a long time ago, so I guess I haven't been keeping up. Yep. So
I mean,
not small.
Just the saying, like it has 2,858 ratings. You can't go wrong with that. 4.6 stars too. You should probably look.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. Cool. Wow. That is his first book. Okay, on Goodreads, it has over 7,000 ratings.
Where do we know Zachary Pike from?
He was. I ran into him once in the groups. I don't think he's very much in them. Like I don't think he's very active there. But I think I ran into him in Lit RPG forum. Maybe.
Oh, okay.
Because somebody called him out. Like when I read the first book was some years ago, and I was looking for a D&D type book because people had shied away from them. They had been going more like World of Warcraft sort of stuff. It seemed like. And I wanted a D&D type, and someone was like, "Hey, Zachary Pike, get in here." And he showed up and was like, "Hey." Talked with him a little bit, checked out his book, was amazed, got the second book, then waited, 5 years for the next book because it came out not long ago. But great series. Amazing. I just like modern world, modern bureaucracy, modern economics combined with D&D. And it spins out from there. It's great.
All right. With that, the podcast has come to an end. Thank you, Damien, for being here. We will keep talking, of course, but I want to send you off for everyone who doesn't subscribe to Patreon. that being said, if you do want to subscribe to Patreon, you're free to do so. It's $5 for, well, basically at least 4 hours of more podcasts each month, more 5, 6, really. And you can think of it as the second half of the podcast if you want to. But if that makes you angry, then don't think of it like this. Think of it as like bonus material. So, yeah. Damien, thank you so much for being here and for doing this on the fly and real quick. This is super nice.
Oh yeah, hey, it was great. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really like these things. I love talking to people and finding out, like meeting new writers and hearing how they tick and stuff. It's awesome. Anyway, you person in front of the screen or at the cell phone or wherever you're listening to this, please like, subscribe, leave a follow, leave a comment. It would mean the world to me because this was what keeps me going. Yeah, and consider subscribing to my Patreon because that also keeps me going and keeps our costs down and lets me actually pay my editor because I like him a lot and he deserves more money. Anyway, and also my marketing guy, JTB. Oh, by the way, JTB has big news he's got to announce soon, and I'm going to let him do that on the podcast, I think. So anyway, Damien, thank you so much for being here. And I'll see you next time.